Welcome to this evening's meeting of the Environment Committee on Monday the 20th of June. For those trying to watch remotely, I do apologise for the late start. We have had a few technical issues. Councillors, if you go to your agendas, I just wish to inform you that items 13 and 14 will be held at the end of the meeting. So items 15 and 16 will move up, and then there will be the exclusion of the public, and items 13 and 14 will be held. We'll start very quickly with apologies for absence. Councillor Lane. Any declarations of interest on any of the agenda items this evening? No? Thank you. Right, then finally, I'd like to welcome Chris to do the presentation from Homes England, please.
More technology.
More technology.
Try and share the screen. Well, a very good evening. My name is Chris Cristiani. I've spoken to quite a few of you before. So I am part of MPC with a sort of comms consultants for Homes England working on the project team. This evening joined by my colleague Nat, who's remote and I believe can hear us, which is great. So Nat's also from the project team. She's the senior planner working on Homes England's behalf. So as you will no doubt recall at your last town council meeting, you considered three sort of planning items associated with the Sustainable Urban Extension. Two discharge of conditions applications, the other one a Section 73 planning application. I'll go through those in a bit more detail this evening to, in effect, make sense of them hopefully for you. Some of this won't be a big surprise. Bluntly, we have already been out to the general public with this information. So back in November, the Christmas lights switch on, which was absolutely fantastic. So we shared a lot of the information on the structuring plan and design code, and that makes up the conditions discharge applications. Albeit back then there was less meat on the bone. We've obviously now submitted, and so it's almost a ready package that has gone into Wrexham District Council. And in addition to that, we also raised the intention of Homes England to submit what's called a Section 73 planning application. And that in effect is to amend the existing outline. And I'll go on to talk a bit more in detail about what we have sought to amend through that application. So I've already done an introduction. Talk a bit about Homes England just to remind you, and then talk a bit about Homes England Network just to remind you once again. Then Section 73 planning application. Then we'll go on to talk about the conditions discharges, and that is the design code and structuring plan, and then timetable and next steps. That's strange because it's changed here, but it hasn't changed there. Oh, there we are. Oh, that's us too. You know that already. So in terms of Homes England, as you probably know, that the UK government's housing accelerator, they're brought on board on sites and they purchase land in order to unlock the delivery of new homes where the market is in effect failing to do so. That led them to Attleborough, and in sort of what that means on the ground is that they purchased the first phase of the Sustainable Urban Extension. Again, I'm probably telling you information that you already know. Ptarmigan still remain in control of the rest of the site. So we're looking at the delivery of phase one, but also it's our obligation as Homes England to in effect bring forward some site-wide strategies, and that is the design code, the structuring plan, and some more information around the Section 106 obligations. We'll just hope those things change again, and that's all sort of written down for you on this particular slide. So yeah, we're going to deliver those site-wide strategies, and in effect, that's what we've sought to bring forward in the latest planning submission. We have a series of Section 106 strategies relating to the obligations that were sort of set as part of the outline and will be continued through detailed planning applications in future. So more to come on that. In terms of phase one, as you probably already know, we've got 1,199 homes, a primary school, local centre, part of the link road, and then also part of the linear park as well. So one of the applications that you have considered, or you considered a couple of weeks ago, was the Section 73 planning application. And in effect, what that seeks to do is change the outline planning permission that's already in place and that was granted in 2020. The idea of Section 73 is that all of the changes are minor in nature and demonstrably minor at that. And so therefore, the remainder of the rest of the outline planning permission is set and does not change. I've sent this presentation to Clark, and so therefore, in your own time, read that through it. I'm sure it'll make good reading. And of course, also click on the links as well, which will take you directly to the planning applications. So what have we sought to achieve in the Section 73 application? We have looked to realign the link road in order to make it safer for future users, and that's drivers and pedestrians alike. There was an admission that the road was particularly straight. One, that's not very good for placemaking, but two, it actually encourages speeding. And so therefore, we'll sort of put some bends in the road in effect to prevent that, particularly as the road goes through what will be a new local centre, and that includes the primary school, where highway safety is obviously paramount. We have sort of changed the junction of the link road and the high street from a roundabout to a T-junction. And then as a result of effectively changing the line of the road, we also have to change the sort of layout of the development parcels that are either side of that. What it doesn't do is change the number of homes that have been agreed, nor the level of affordable housing or anything else but the shape of those particular land use cells and the link road. What we have sort of changed through the Section 73 application through a very, very minor adjustment is the density of just a couple of the development parcels, and that's to increase the height by about 1.5 meters. Again, kind of sort of thinking of our master planners, our architects, just to make the place sort of more mixed in terms of architectural merit. However, where that has been proposed, it's internal and they're internally facing buildings, so there won't be any sort of impact on any homes outside of the SUE. Next slide is, and so therefore, we have sought to amend the outline planning application through the submission of new parameter plans. And for most people, they understand that with blobs on a piece of paper, and in effect, they're not too far from that. They set the broad parameters for what can be delivered on the site for future developers. That's one half of the Section 73. So really quite sort of minor changes, but we believe for the betterment of the SUE in general. And then as part of that Section 73, there are a number of changes to conditions to allow for reviews at certain periods of time to make sure that the development is or remains appropriate through time. One of the key elements of the Section 73 application that is new and new to all of us is consideration of nutrient neutrality. And in effect, that is making sure that, say, surface water runoff and the water that is resulted in your development, in effect, does not have a negative impact on local watercourses. It's much more of an issue in North Norfolk, South Norfolk district councils, but Brecon is still part of the catchment. And so we've done a detailed analysis of nutrient neutrality on the SUE. I'm pleased to say that we are not in effect affected by that. The next slide pertains to structuring plan and design code, and this is almost the juicier. I was saying to Councillor Bond, almost the sexier part of what we're trying to achieve most recently. That being two key site-wide documents: the structuring plan and the design code. So this is the Section 73 is a mechanism to allow us to deliver on the SUE, but the structuring plan and the design code go into detail about what will be delivered and what is due to be expected from developers in future when they come to build on the sustainable urban extension. So they are very important documents. I've sort of said to council that I'll happily send some hard copies through to the council as well for sort of ease of access and reading. But they are very exciting. They are the next phase of the SUE, going from concept to delivery. Now we're putting down on paper what is going to be delivered. Whereas before, I don't want to sort of discredit Tarmagon, but obviously an outline permission is a red line. It's principle of development, whereas this is the detail. So structuring plan is where everything is located, to dumb it down, and the design code, in effect, is the standards of architecture, layout, scale, and design that we expect from future phases. And as I mentioned before, these are documents that apply across the whole site. That will be, when it pops up on the screen, is a copy of the structuring plan map. Sorry, so there's quite a delay. I don't propose to sort of talk around it too much, because ultimately you can sort of have a look at it. It's quite small, given that we're on a sort of big screen, but it gives you a flavour of residential development parcels, of sustainable drainage systems across the site, the linear path, of course, which is pictured there. And when you do receive a copy of the presentation, the sort of key is on the right-hand side there, and you can have a look at that. And ultimately, we're always looking for feedback as well. So if you feel that there are elements that warrant further discussion, please let us know. And of course, I mean, the two right-hand colours are not as easy to distinguish, but we see in this particular master plan that the three character areas are set out. So on the left, you've got the yellow parcel, in the middle, sort of reddy pink, and then on the right hand side, on the eastern side, the other side of Buckingham Road, is another parcel, but I'll make that clearer a bit later on. So that's the structuring plan, where everything is located. The design code goes into quite considerable detail around local character, around, as I say, the expected design, and that includes the character of the land around, say, the link road, open space, car and cycle parking, safety and security, environment and sustainability. So it's quite a meaty document, but one which is of incredible importance to the wider SUE as developers look to deliver there. Quite specifically, they break down those character areas that I just mentioned. So Town Oaks, Borough Lane, and Poplar Meadows, that's carrying on those names from the old outline application, and in effect now making them sort of the places that should be expected. So when it comes up on the screen, you'll see that those character areas are broken down again. So Poplar Meadows on the western side, and Town Oaks in the middle, and that's Homes England's sort of domain, and then Borough Lane on the other side of Buckingham Road there. Again, probably best for you to have a look at when you've got it in front of you rather than on the screen there, because the text is quite small. So another key document, as mentioned, to in effect set the parameters, the expectations of development coming forward on the SUE. In terms of timelines and next steps, we're actually sort of quite a long way through the process of submission so far. And so we're expecting a determination of those applications in July or possibly August. Representations are being received most days from statutory consultees, obviously from Town Council last week or the week before. We will look to go out with the next stage in September as well, so a year on from when we first stood in the square on what was a really quite windy day. We'll be out again and sharing what is next, and in effect for us that will be the reserve matters. As you know, we've committed to the reserve matters application, or the first one being the delivery of our section of the link road, so making sure that it comes first. And then, yeah, we'll look to submit that very soon after. First application for housing, spring 23, and then hopefully the first homes delivered in 2024. That is my presentation. I'll sped through that, but it's not the easiest sort of information to share. It's quite complex in the nature of the planning applications, but hopefully it gives you a flavour of what it is that we're trying to achieve through them, no matter how sort of confusing as Section 73 might be. In actual fact, it goes back to why Homes England exists on this site. In effect, it's unlocking the barriers to development. Naturally, when you go from an outline to a detailed development proposal, you're going to find things that need to be amended and things that need changing. So I don't mean to be too sort of business as usual here, but in reality, it is just that. It's making sure that we're delivering on what was promised before through a number of planning mechanisms. And that's what you considered a couple of weeks ago. I'm happy to take any questions. I know Nat's there as well. That's obviously our planning team and can deal with questions as well.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions, anybody?
It's not really a sort of question. So I'm just looking at the PDF version that you sent through, that's been sent on. When we zoom in on the maps, they are quite pixelated and it's hard to read some of the text. Are we able to get a better quality one to look at?
Yes, I mean, between now and me sending it to you, it is on the planning portal, but the minute I get home, I'll send it to you. Thank you. But yes, they are as high quality as they come, so you can get down into detail there.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All okay now?
Yeah, I'm fine. No, I've got some additional drawings. If anybody, I can't share my screen at the moment because Chris, you're still sharing yours. But I've got a couple of drawings that you may want to see where you can see the difference between what's been approved in terms of the link road and the proposed layout, just so that you can see more clearly. There we go. Now is that sharing? Let's have a look. Can you see my screen now? Hopefully you can see my screen.
Yes.
Yep. So you can see this. Zoom in.
Yeah, please.
Hang on 1 second. Oh, well, that didn't do anything, did it? That's helpful. Okay. So this plan is contained within the Section 73 planning statement, and hopefully you can see this now. You can see that grey line that my cursor is kind of going along. That is the road that was approved as part of the outline permission. And so what this Section 73 is seeking to do is to change that link roads to, as you can see, the formation of that purple line there, which has the effect of just better placemaking, reducing the speeds when you've got curved roads like this. Obviously people can't kind of zoom along, and so that you can see more clearly. I think this drawing shows quite well what's been approved and what we're now seeking to do. And as Chris rightly said earlier, as a result of the changes to the link road, there's had to be some tweaks and changes to the size of some of the cells and some of the development parcels and things like that. But I think this drawing shows quite well the amendments to the road. The other drawing that you may find of interest, and again I can zoom in, is, and this is contained in the structuring plan explanatory document, so the document that's been submitted with the structuring plan. And again, this kind of shows you the illustrative phasing. So Chris has referred to the subsequent reserve matters application, which will be coming in from Homes England once the Section 73 is approved. And you can see here, so the very first reserve matter will be for the provision of that link road. You can see in that black, and you can see the dotted line not quite so well on here, but again, if you'd like a copy of this plan, we can sort this out. The infrastructure to that pumping station in the southwest corner. So that will be the part.
Sorry, we've lost you.
Oh, have you? Oh.
We've disconnected. 1 second.
Okie doke.
Yeah.
Hear me again? Hello.
Yep, we're back.
Right. Excellent. Yes, so I was just showing this, I was just showing you this phasing plan again. Part of it isn't that clear for you, but again, if you'd like a copy of it, we can provide that a hard copy so that you can see. But the first reserve matter will be, as I said, this. I don't know when you stopped seeing me. This black line here, which is that first part of the link road. So getting that in, and that's really what Homes England is all about, is getting that link road in to enable the rest of the development to be able to proceed. And then the rest of that, as you can see, that the phase 1, that is the rest of the land that is owned by Homes England. So they will form further reserve matters planning applications that will come in due course, and then the remaining phases. But just so that you've got some comfort, that very first planning application that comes in once the outline section 73 has been approved will be for the link road. But I think Chris has covered everything else beautifully.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
And I would just say that you know where we are as well. I appreciate that Joel, who you probably met before at full council meetings, has been on paternity leave, so hasn't been able to come up as late. But you've got our information. So if you need us, if you're in want of further information, then just drop us a line. We're in constant contact with a number of different stakeholders here, from Targan to Brecon, Norfolk County Council. So we're acting sort of in the middle and trying to bring all of those different ambitions together. And I believe we're doing a good job so far. But ultimately, puts us in a very good position to work with you as well, to share information and help bring you on the journey as well. So yeah, let me know if you've got any questions.
Can I just clarify one thing? Where phase 2 is, I can't quite read it from here. Is that the section to the left of phase 1?
Correct. Yes, it's this pink area here.
That's it. Yeah. I can't quite make out which is phase 2 and which is phase 3. So that will promote the link road quicker then, because the next stage of the link road will presumably come as phase 2.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's a road to nowhere.
Yes.
Yeah. So well, that's right. So
the link road.
Sorry,
I was just going to ask about the link road, and that is phase 6 seems to be the completion of the link road.
Yes. Well, no, but it isn't, because ultimately there's a requirement as part of the outline consent that says that after the 1200 home, the entirety of the link road has to be delivered. And if you take into consideration that Homes England have 1,199 of those homes, it will be upon future development partners to build a single home before that has to be delivered. Therefore, the emphasis really is on the earliest possible delivery of that link road.
That's good news.
yeah. Sorry.
There's no doubt about that. It is.
Yeah.
It is far in the future.
It's possibly not too clear from this drawing here for you to be able to see, but what Homes England, that first reserve matter that Homes England will be putting in is for that dark black section of the link road, plus all the infrastructure that goes under the rest of the link road down to that pumping station down there. And as Chris says, the remainder of the link road has to be completed by the 1200th home. As you can see, phase 1 contains all those houses. So phase 2 and that part of phase 2 goes all the way down the rest of that link road. By then, that link road will have to be in.
But it's worth adding, and I mean, it's more a personal observation than anything else, but we're in constant conversation, as I say, with, say, Ptarmigan County Council, Breckland as the planning authority, and there is a unilateral ambition to deliver just that. No one is on a different page. We understand just how important that link road is to local people, bluntly, as a means of making a 4,000 home development acceptable. There needs to be that link road delivered early. So we're all on the same page there. We're all aligned, and that has never been in doubt.
Thank you. Right, yeah, I'll just say thanks for that. I think there will be lots more questions in detail, which I think you'll pick up as your presentations go on. But I appreciate you coming in at the moment. I think a hard copy of the plan as well would be useful, because then we can keep track and get used to the phasings and the names,
Yes.
whatever they may be,
Yeah.
so that we're all familiar.
Yeah,
but thanks.
I mean, at every juncture, we've sort of made a habit now of public information, so getting out onto the square, presentations for Breckland councillors as well, and then subsequently sort of sharing it with others as well. But they can't have driven public information. So we always go to the public first, and that's proved to be a very worthwhile exercise. And that includes obviously the town council. So we'll do that again once the determination of the applications take place, hopefully positively, and then at the submission of reserve matters, I'll be back here. Albeit Joel really is hoping to come back to your monthly meetings. I know he enjoys them.
Again, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, continue the meeting. Well, next item is
Sorry, Chair, can we just
Yeah.
try and correct our camera issue?
yes,
If I take
please.
1 minute out, we've got a camera that's on the strobe effect at the moment, and we're not quite sure why.
It's going up.
And this one is. Has that corrected us?
No. Fine.
Attempts to fix, maybe down to the cabling.
I was actually thinking, asking if you could take this home after tonight and just have a general play, because it's beyond me, unfortunately.
Let's take the car on there.
It will come back on any moment now, but the camera glitch is still on, I'm afraid.
But the audio is working.
Audio is working fine.
The camera's working, it's just.
Just
noise.
It's a flicker. So I'm
Yeah.
going to, I'll do some analytics on it. See what's happening.
Right, so are we?
Yes, you're fine. Chair. Sorry, I was trying to make it a little bit.
Much appreciated. Public participation, well, we have no public, so
Okay.
I think we'll skip past public participation. Item 6, minutes of the Environment Committee, 16th of May. You've all had copies. Any comments on the minutes?
I was comment on section 12 the bullying application. It wasn't bullying.
Sorry,
Um,
I don't think anyone was there.
sorry, I think that we'll just read it out to me.
I have a copy, I'll read it out to you.
Okay.
A resident had contacted the office to complain about rats at the allotment. Councillor Wellham had been informed ground staff had been to visit the allotments but unable to put poison down. As several chickens are being kept, it was discussed to ask tenants to put feed high off the ground. Town clerk informed Councillor Wellham if he had spoken to her about this prior to the meeting, she could have informed him what procedures she had put into place to deal with his points he had raised, instead of making a personal attack on herself and her staff at a public meeting. Councillor Leslie reminded Councillor Wellham of the member officer protocol, and that is all that is under that.
Okay. What that was not a personal attack on anyone. No one was named, and I wasn't going to anybody. I have apologised. I did apologise at that meeting, but which wasn't minuted. But I have apologised to the staff and the town clerk, both verbally and in writing. Okay, we've got through that. And now we're discussing it, you know, one-to-one.
Yeah, can I just make something clear? That I don't think that is an allegation that you were making a personal attack. I think that was a comment that Anne just took that she heard on YouTube.
Right, okay.
So she's just she's listened to YouTube and summarised it. I'm very happy to take that out, alter it, word it however we agree. I have no strong feeling about it whatsoever, Peter. As far as I'm concerned, we're fine.
Yeah, I'd just noted that I did apologise at the meeting.
Oh,
I wasn't
absolutely.
listening,
Yeah, there's no problem. Yeah,
but- Okay,
but I think that it did reflect what was said. Because Michelle, I think, said
yeah, it reflects.
she felt it was a personal attack. So from that perspective, we do like to have some information in the minutes, if you like, although there was no resolution or anything there.
No.
So, and I think it's perfectly acceptable to say that it has all been sorted now.
Yeah.
I know there's been conversations between you and Michelle, and in fact between you and I.
Yeah,
So,
and I've also, I've also started.
Can we just say that Councillor Welland is a new councillor, and maybe it was just something that was said and not,
Absolutely.
it wasn't meant anymore.
No,
But I only had the information just
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
before
No, and
the
I think
meeting, and, you know, for
this
place.
is what's been agreed
Yes, yes, I know.
I
privately.
just wanted to let the committee know that an apology has been given to the staff.
Yeah, no,
And
absolutely.
we are now discussing, you know, the allotment. of-
Yeah, well, that's on the agenda for tonight, so, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I actually, while we're talking about apologies, would actually quite like for Councillor Wenham to receive one, because I actually, on a personal level, find it really sad that the council has reverted back to producing minutes of this standard. And the fact that, however, whatever was said in that meeting, minutes should not reflect things that are emotive. So the way in which something is said, that's wholly inappropriate to be included in minutes, because that's open to interpretation, and they should be a factual recording of what happened in that meeting. So the fact that it was included in the first place is inappropriate, but the fact that they've actually been released into the public domain when they say that a councillor attacked a member of staff actually could be defamatory of his character. And this council should know better than that for everything that it's been through. And I'm making these comments now, and to be fair, I think that this is a conversation that would have been far better had out of the public eye. But the fact of the matter is, when I made suggestions today, like the fact that staff and councillors all undergo training, I was told that those suggestions were unhelpful by the clerk. When I failed to see personally how training could be unhelpful, I don't see how that suggestion is unhelpful. Because
I have to
actually,
interject with a motion, because you're not
That's not a
allowed-
motion.
That it, well, okay. Because you can't say things like that. You're in breach of member office protocol.
can you please explain to me how?
Okay. Any accusation against an individual, and you just made one.
That wasn't an accusation. The town clerk did email to me today and say that my suggestions were unhelpful. I'm not saying she's a bad clerk. I'm saying that she did email me saying that today,
Okay.
which is truthful.
Right, I think.
Can I make a
No.
point of order,
No,
please?
excuse me. Thank you. We'll get a little less emotive, everybody, please. You did email today. Your email went to everybody. Michelle's reply went to everybody, and my reply went to everybody, which was, as chair of this committee tonight, I would listen to all presentations on why you thought this minute was wrong. What we are arguing about is whether it was factually wrong, not the reasoning behind it. Peter fully accepts that as a new councillor, he perhaps worded things badly. They have sorted it out between them. The fact is that these words here were what was used at the meeting. Michelle did say she felt it was a personal attack. Now, if we're going to reflect what is said at the meeting rather than the intention of what should have been said, how are we ever going to get factual minutes? I do accept that you all feel very strongly. You had already left the meeting, having accused myself and the councillors of underhand dealing, but we didn't put that in the minutes.
Feel free to.
No, I don't need to. I don't need to. Peter, you have raised the issue. Would you like the minutes amended?
I'd like the apology to be put into the minutes.
The apology for what?
For the apology I made at the meeting.
Yeah.
That's very fair.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
that's
is,
fair.
that is very fair,
Yeah.
and I do accept that.
Yes.
Now, your email was a private email to the councillors. It has been dealt with as a private email to the councillors. Those that were relevant have replied. If you wish to take that further, I totally agree with you. I think it should be taken in a private sitting to be discussed at another time. It has no bearing on the Environment Committee. So, sorry, I saw another hand up. Yeah? Taylor.
If I may, those emails are not private, and actually, if any member of the public wanted them, they could ask them for a FOI. So I think that's something else that we need to bear in mind while conducting our business.
Right, but I do think if you have pertinent issues that you wish to raise, I think the thing is to ask to raise them privately.
And I was told to raise them here
By whom?
in the email. In the emails I received this afternoon.
Well, you've raised them,
I have.
and we have discussed them. Peter is perfectly happy with the outcome. Are there any further issues on the agenda, the minutes of the last meeting? Yes.
As we accept them with the amendments that Peter made.
Seconder? Yeah, that's good. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. Right, moving on. I need to find my agenda now, right, any matters arising? Yes, I know. I've got the thing here, which I think everybody's had as well. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. I think everything is on the the watering schedule that has been dealt with, has it?
Yes, that's now been taken by caretakers. Ground staff won't have time, and they're aware that they're now supposed to take that on.
Right, okay. And the grass cutting schedule, you've spoken to.
Yes, we are meeting again tomorrow. They've been catching up with the cemetery, and we're going to have a rota which I will publish with where they'll be at what times of the month.
Okay, so that's been dealt with. Right, the councillor walkabout. We've all had a note of suggested places. Is there anywhere else that anybody would like to add to that? Or anything you think we should take off that is unnecessary? No. Right, well then, that's our suggested walkabout for next Monday evening. We meet as arranged and give it a go.
Is it 6 o'clock?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. Outside
At the
the town.
Yeah,
Bring the box in.
Bringing the bus.
you're bringing the bus.
Oh, you bring it.
And you get there.
How many does your bus suit? Right. The issue of the grants is on the agenda as well, so we'll go through that a bit later on. All right. So, damage to the Lomond Road play area. I don't know how many of you are aware that Lomond roads have been shut off because of damage. And Michelle can probably fill us in a bit more information. She asked me to go down and have a look at it, which I did. Quite clearly, the barriers that have been put up had been thrown everywhere. But do you want to fill in, Michelle? I think Taylor has a question.
Yeah, it was just that you said about councils being aware of this. I was actually made aware via a Facebook post.
Yeah,
where
I saw that
living
post.
on the
Yeah.
estate. And going forward, because the pay areas are quite emotive, especially at half times and stuff like that, I do feel that if members could be made aware beforehand or at the time, rather than finding out via.
Yeah, it had only just happened. I also found out about it from that Facebook post, and I spoke to Michelle, and she filled me in, as she will do now with everybody else. And as I said, I went down and had a look at it and see what it was about. You want to fill in?
Yeah, so that's a fair point. I'm more than happy to email out if we have to close the play area. The problem we had, and the problem we still have, is I don't really want to close this play area. I don't feel it's overly necessary to close the play area. But because I am concerned, really from a litigation point of view, what I would like to do is just go back to what we did before, which is cordon off the damaged area. But that does mean you have to trust the public to then not use the area that you've cordoned off. And what was happening was the barriers were all being thrown about and moved, and then that was causing further hazard in the play area. So we made the decision to close it. Now, what I would like to do, because this is unfortunately not going to be a quick fix, we're going to be looking at minimum 4 to 6 weeks minimum to get this fixed, is look at just cordoning off that section again. But the reason I wanted that to come to council, because it is a motive, we don't want to have it shut for summer. But there is going to be a risk that people will move the barriers in these areas that they're not meant to, and where does that leave us in terms of liability? That's my concern.
Can I just clarify what's actually happened?
It's basically a gradual and worsening cracking of the wet core, mainly around the roundabout area, and it's got to the point where when we have a roundabout place, it will fail, so it does need to.
What barriers are you using? And do we have any Harris fencing you can use?
I don't think we do have any house fencing. We're using the red barriers at the moment. I can certainly explore house fencing. That'll be better.
Bolt that round it.
Yeah.
We do have fencing, and that was stuff that's been moved around last time.
Oh, okay.
Right, okay, that's not.
And it wasn't just moved around. When I went down, there was one bit over there, one bit over there, one bit over there. But then it was.
It's normally if you bolt Harris fencing, it's got the nice heavy duty blocks at the bottom, then it should be reasonably secure, movable.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm quite happy to look at doing that again on the basis that we've got a sign up saying we don't want to close this area, but if this is abused, we will have to close it for safety. But I wanted it to come to council. I don't want it to just be on me this time.
Any comments?
Well, my comment, the Harris fencing, if properly put together and bolted, should give a good measure of security around it, because you don't want to shut the whole of the.
Which is what we've had to do at the moment. We've had to padlock.
Just to make sure that it's properly fitted together. Sounds a bit worrying if the Harris fencing was taken down and thrown around, but I wonder whether it's probably put together.
Yeah, not on this occasion, but it has been before. We've just used the mobile barriers with signs on this time, so we could do it again with the proper signs.
I mean, say 4 to 6 weeks.
Minimum.
Okay, let's say because 4 weeks, that takes us to summer holidays.
I know.
So time is of the
Yeah.
essence.
And I've put in some estimates just to give you a rough idea. So I'm by the time we get to full council, I'm hoping we'll have site visits and some firm prices. But there will be a decision to make at that point as well, because there are companies quoting for repair and other companies saying this has been repaired twice. The repair is, you're sellotaping a piece of crap window, basically. It's not going to last. So that will obviously have an impact on how big the job is as well. So if the council wants to agree that we go along the Harris fencing and open the rest, I could get that done tomorrow.
Sorry, I do have a question. How are we on public liability if somebody climbs over the fencing and tries to get to the equipment?
Well, that was my concern. I can get Aaron to really do it in a moment and check. But that
If you wouldn't mind double checking that, please.
You can demonstrate you've done all you can.
Yeah.
Surely at the moment, people could climb over the gates and get in if they.
Which is what they're doing.
Exactly,
Yeah.
so What difference would it make if there was, do you know what I mean, if it was only that one part of the playground or the whole playground, it could still be accessed?
Because the barriers we're using before were being thrown around on the roads, which is causing further trip hazard, but hopefully the terrace fence and that wouldn't happen in the same way.
I think the appropriate, I know signage doesn't cover you really, but it needs some proper signage.
I would like to double check with the insurance company.
Yeah.
Sorry, Vera.
As I say, can I make a proposal that is checked with the insurance company if we can go ahead, Harris, not Harris, yes, Harris fencing is put up ASAP.
Yeah.
Please.
And then we can reopen the playground.
Yeah.
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 Sorry, Joe, did you have a question?
Yeah. The Harris fencing, if I remember right, was put around the skate park, and look what happened to that. They got in there.
Just young.
I'll second the motion because I think that's the best we can do at the moment.
Thank you.
Not ideal.
It's just an idea, it's something.
If you're unhappy.
Check with the insurance
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
We just need to have a vote on the motion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I proposed it, Phil seconded it.
Second it. All in favour? You're happy with that, Michelle? Yeah, absolutely. Right. Item 9, restoration and replacement of the London Road town sign. Most of you know that's sort of dilapidated and fell down. This quote and estimate we've got here is for repair and or replace, is that?
Yes, so there's the reason I've just put these on at the moment is because I kind of want to know where councillors want to go with this before I put any more work into it. So you'll see there's 2 quotes here. One is to make a fiberglass copy of the sign, which essentially will last more or less forever. And the other one is to try and do a repair. This is a difficult one to get 3 quotes on because this quote's from the artist that originally did the sign. So I think the question for council is, do you want that sign repaired by the person that did the sign, or do you want to erect something different now, and if so what, so I can look into it? It's not going to be recoverable. They're going to have to mould it and make a new one, or make a fiberglass copy.
What's the sign made of?
Wood. It's a chunkier version of the one that's on Queen Square.
Well, looking at it, it makes sense that it's fiberglass. If it's properly covered. If it's a good rendering, it would make sense that it's made of fiberglass rather than wood. Does that quote include erection as well, or is it just the sign?
I think it's just the sign. So that basically covers repair to the sign as much as possible to make moulding, to make a new fiberglass sign. And then we have to erect it, or I'm sure we can pay them to erect it.
Where did the old sign go off, and do we know how much it cost? Because I've never bought a town sign. And I don't know what the going rate for a town sign is. Oh, you know, 6.5 grand seems quite expensive for something like the whole.
So I have asked for other quotes. I've got, for instance, Harry Stebbin, who are doing our notice board.
Yes.
But there aren't many other people that make these bespoke signs, which is why I wanted you to see a rough price and decide, do you want to go down that road again, or do you want to do something different?
Where is this one? Sorry.
This is correct. And then the compound.
My gut feeling is that that's a huge amount of money for one sign. It might be the going rate. I really don't know, but I think we should be looking at other options, or even at least finding out what we paid for in the first place.
Yeah, I was going to say, if it was a repair, then I would see some sense in going back to the person that originally done the work. But if the preferred option is the fiberglass option, then I think there's there should be no reason that it should be the same person doing the work. So further quotes for that option, I think would be advisable, because like Councillor Smith says, £6,500 is a considerable amount of money. And I think if you can compare it to 2 or 3 other quotes, I think that would reflect whether or not this is actually a good price.
Yeah, I have a question. Are we going to replace it or repair it as it is, or do we want to redesign it?
Well, that's another important question, because again, if we're moving away from the original artist, which I think we should get some comparable quotes, and you could have something slightly different if you wanted to. It depends what you want
The
to
one
do.
up there was slightly different to what we have in town
It is.
as well. So there's room for that. There are companies that as well that will 3D scan what we have and print far cheaper than this as well. So that's another option.
3D printing, yeah.
So
That makes sense.
am I getting the general feeling that replacement rather than repair? Or-
I think looking at what the other options are for a whole new site, not necessarily from this person.
How badly damaged is it, do we know?
It's pretty bad.
It's rotten.
It's really badly rotten.
So may I suggest that we ask Michelle to bring us back later with some further information?
I think it merits further
Yeah,
investigation.
It's a large sum of money, isn't it?
It is,
And we want to make sure we get the best value on this.
and obviously we've only had the one quote. So,
I think if I may, alternatives as well. I mean, the 3D printing, but I mean, yes, that makes perfect sense, doesn't it? And-
technology again.
Yeah.
But if I know you're open to options and you want to go for more fiberglass, that gives me a lot of colours
Yes.
that I can now go and look at. So,
And can I leave it to you to put it onto the development and then continues and then you've got the information. Any more on that subject? No? The rodent problem at the Grosvenor Park allotments. Just as a by the by, I spoke to a friend of mine who has an allotment down there, asked him if he had issues. And he said, no, but then I'm nowhere near the chickens. So I think it's, you know, sort of general consensus that that is the issue. You asked for this on for a reason, didn't you? Although normally it's an operational issue. You were concerned that we might have to actually say no chickens on the allotment. Did you want to say any more? Did you want to say any more first?
You know, what I want to say is, one, the resident that bought it up, I spoke to yesterday, I did invite her, but she couldn't make it tonight. If we are looking at chickens, surely we shouldn't penalise those ones that are looking after chickens properly. And write to the people that have chickens that aren't, and give them, you know, an option, either keep chickens and look after them properly, or you lose a lot of them. Because, you know, if it's attracting rats, you know, you've got the children play area right next to it. It does seem to be done that end.
Yeah, I was just going to say, while I agree with what you've said, that it may not seem fair to penalise those that keep their chickens properly, unless you're going to set in the tenancy agreements, find definitive, like, do you know what I mean, guidelines on what we think is appropriate. I think it would be a more straightforward, simple way to say, well, actually, on these allotments, we are not going to permit chickens, but we do have the Queen's Road and the Chapel Road allotments. And if one of those become available, we could see if someone that previously had chickens on the Taylor Wimpey site would like to take an allotment elsewhere, because they're not necessarily residents that live in that area that have those allotments. And there doesn't seem to be a problem in those two areas, probably because they're not as open to the elements. And we could possibly suggest they move. But I think unless we're going to sit here and say, what do we deem as an appropriate way to keep the chickens, I think it would be far easier and straightforward to say, well, actually, for the sake of the maybe 5 or 6 of you that have them, because we have experienced a problem, unfortunately, we're not going to allow it anymore
Well, just on that one side.
on that one site, but allow it on the alternative sites.
Yes,
Sorry, can I just explain why I put it on? But that, I do agree with what Councillor Taylor's saying. So, I have been down there quite a bit in the last couple of weeks, and I've spoken to the residents. It is absolutely only at one end, but it's so bad that you can actually see, even though the grass was cut about a week and a half ago, you can actually see the runs. There are clear paths that the rats are using. Now, there are the chickens that are deemed to be a problem, but there are also some other chickens that are part of one of the people that aren't very happy. And I don't think they realise that their chickens are also a problem because they've also got food on the floor. And you've got a compost heap between these two lots of chickens. So actually it's a perfect storm. They've got somewhere warm and dry. They've got food on the floor in both areas. I've now had some contact from one of the owners of the chickens who thinks his chicken coop has been made to look worse to force us to get rid of the chickens. It's all becoming quite political. But the evidence is the rats are there. There's a lot of rats. There are videos and pictures of rats in the chicken coops. I can't see that we're going to really solve this problem without stopping those other chickens. Really.
I agree, no chicken.
Can I just read? I happen to have tenancy agreements in front of me at the moment, and I'll just read the relevant section. So at least we've got the facts, because you raised a good point about the technicalities of this, which is under number 14 of the agreement they've signed. It says no livestock or poultry of any kind shall be kept upon the allotment garden other than a reasonable number of chickens or rabbits for the tenant's own domestic consumption. Such livestock as permitted to be securely contained in humane structure and cared for to the entire satisfaction of the council. The tenant will also be held entirely responsible for all costs associated with the control of vermin, which may be due to keeping of livestock. So that's in the agreement already. So you've got two things there. You've got an opportunity to say no as a council, but you've also got to say if they keep them and there's issues, they're the ones responsible for the vermin control as well. So there's two options there within that agreement. As it stands.
Councillor Ellison, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I think one other thing that we all need to be mindful of is that the area of the allotments where this problem has been identified is directly next to the children's play area. And children are children and they play and they don't wash their hands and they put their hands in their mouths. And I just think really it's a bit stump time.
Well, we have quite a number of allotments in our borough. Queen's Road, the ones that come off of Chapel Road. How many people keeps chickens on them ones?
On the Queen's Road, I don't think anyone does.
No,
And
there are some on Chapel Road, and they're very well kept.
Well, no disrespect to these people down on Grosvenor Park, but they don't seem as if they're bothered. So I think we should have all sorry, you got to move them. Personally, I mean, if there's that many rats, you know, a rat problem is one.
That would be my preferred option, because I don't think we'll control it otherwise.
I think we should ban chickens. I mean, allotments aren't keeping chickens on. Where there's food, you'll get rats. It's as simple as that. We used to keep rabbits at one time. They got in the rabbit hutch through a hole about so big. One jumped over my shoulder and scared the living daylights out of me. But they're attracted to food. It's as simple as that.
If we go down that route though, I'm sorry, I will come to you, Taylor. If we go down that route though, we're going to have to rewrite the agreements with all the
It's
tenants.
Well, the tenancy agreements, yeah, that's a problem because they've just been signed.
They're relatively new.
But it is within the remit of that the council can stop that if it's not kept to the satisfaction of the entire satisfaction of the council. And if we're not satisfied with this is being kept, we can stop it. It's within our authority already within the agreements to stop it. That's the point I was making. But if there is issues, we can also enforce a burner control is being placed at the cost of the individual who's on it. So there's choices there for the council to make. But I just wanted to make you aware under the framework of what we can do.
So, Taylor,
The grey area, I think, with that is there, the way that it's worded, is there a argument for the few that are keeping theirs to a good standard, that we're not satisfied with it? Because some of them, having been down there myself, some of them are, the chicken areas are actually quite well prepared, quite well kept. And it is a few that are, I think, letting them down. The problem that we then have is that because the rats are now there, they will not go unless all of the chickens go. But from what Andy Westby said, I do think if we're going to ban them, and that is the view of the council, which I'm inclined to agree with, I do think that it should be specifically minuted that it is on the Greater Park site and not inclusive of Queen's Road and Chapel Road.
What was the wording you said? Something to do with the satisfaction of the council.
Yeah, I'll go back to it, sorry. I closed it down. Stupid.
Because it doesn't sound like we're particularly satisfied. So if the existing rules say that chickens are permitted once we're satisfied, the fact that we're not, and it's called
I'll read it again.
Yeah.
No livestock or poultry of any kind shall be kept upon the allotted garden other than reasonable numbers of chickens or rabbits for the tenant's own domestic consumption. Such livestock as permitted to be securely contained in structure and cared for to the entire satisfaction of the council. The tenant will also be held entirely responsible for all costs associated with the control of the vermin, which may be due to keeping of livestock.
See, I don't think it's their care. Like some of them, their care would probably be sufficient. So I think that's where it leaves us in a grey area.
sorry.
I mean, the one thing, the tenancy agreement as it stands, it will mean that it will just be a matter of policing. It will be a matter of sending a letter saying it's not to our satisfaction. This is what we need to do. We need to police it. Hopefully the problem will go away, but that's the way we'll have to do it under the tenancy agreement. Until the tenancy agreements are rewritten. And also, I think if we don't allow chickens in one area, do we allow them in the other area? I think at the moment it seems sensible to express our dissatisfaction, to express that they are responsible for carrying out any control and being charged for it. Then we'll have to police it. Then we'll have to move forward to the next step, because the tenancy agreement, those are the steps you have to carry out until the tenancy agreement's changed to not have chickens anywhere, which seems the most sensible approach throughout the whole of the area, because you're always going to get
my concern over that, sorry, I will come to you in a bit, but I have a concern over that, is that if we tell them that they've got to deal with it, is that they either bring in pest controllers or put down rat poison.
True.
Which is not something that we can countenance because of other wildlife and children. So it's got to be something that we control, I think. Sorry.
My concern with it, this is partly the reason I brought it to council, is because trying to enforce the management of the vermin control of things is just going to be absolutely impossible. And the problem I have with sort of what you're saying, Roger, about waiting till the end of the tenancy agreement, is there are people now that have been seeing this get worse over previous weeks are actually saying, I don't go down there anymore, my children don't go down there, we've been in daylight and they're running over our shoes. We need a more instant fix. And I think that I have enough evidence, and I think you have enough evidence to show that there are rats in those chicken runs. So surely that's enough for us to say that we can't be satisfied because there's rats in those chicken runs.
Councillor Taylor, then we'll go back to your proposal.
Yeah, a couple of things. I think with that, while I think the idea is good, I think it would be hard to prove that there's rats in every single chicken run, to say that every single one of them is an issue. I think a blanket cover, and even if it means amending the policy, like the tenancy, it's well within our powers to do it. So we could amend the tenancy, or like Councillor Bond suggested, write to them. And although in this first instance, it might be that we write to them and that might not resolve the problem instantly, I think there would be an element where those people receiving the letters saying, if we have to seek our own measures of pest control, you will be financially responsible for it. They might just get rid of the chickens off their own back because they don't want the cost that will be affiliated to the pest control. And some of them, I know, because you get like humane ones where people bring birds of prey to scout the area. I would imagine, I haven't looked into it, would imagine that if you had that, on a regular basis, there'd probably be quite a hefty price tag attached to it. But those few allotment holders that have chickens probably wouldn't want to share between them. That in itself might be incentive enough for us to not have to make any amendments, save Michelle the effort of changing the agreements, reissuing them, and everything else that be affiliated to it, and hopefully would amicably resolve the issue.
Councillor Westby, Councillor Barry, had your hand.
I think the other thing that's a prime consideration is the fact that the proximity of children playing over and above whatever happens at other allotment sites. It's just not right that this will be in areas where children are playing.
Councillor?
Having spoken to one of the allotment holders down there, he said that his the allotment he hasn't seen rats at all. But there are 3 chickens down there that are very often without water, etc., because you go down and feed them. And I've advised them to ring the RSPCA because if they're being kept in bad conditions, that's what they will deal with. But he's been down there and actually watered them because there's no water and it's 3 chickens in the ground. So,
to wrap this up, if I may,
Yeah.
Chair. I'm happy to make a proposal,
Well,
in
I
line
think
with what
we've
I
already
said.
had one.
Have we had one? That's all right.
Don't carry on if you want.
I can offer an amended proposal. That's all right, since it's the appropriate thing to do. That we write to the tenants who are with chickens and livestock down there, informing them of the rat issue. That if they have an opportunity to remove the chickens, or we will instruct the appropriate people for further control at their cost. In line with what has been said, because that's the most appropriate thing. I feel like it will result in the same thing anyway.
Right. Your first proposal was that.
Can I just add one more thing to that? Do we give them 3 months? Give them 3 months, and if there's no improvement in 3 months, then we take more in action.
What are we waiting 3 months for?
I think 3 months is a long
It's
time.
too long. Yeah.
3
Like a
months,
month then.
you have more
You're-
rat
oh.
infestation.
4 weeks, 6 weeks max.
It would
And
just
Stafford Clark.
breed and pair, they breed
Well,
everywhere.
yeah. Well, a
5, 6
month
weeks,
then, a month then.
and you'll run with them.
Yeah. So the proposal is that we tell them they've got 1 month basically to move.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're going to.
I'd make them less than that,
At
actually.
their expense.
Did you say 1 month to remove the chicken?
Well, to sort out the chickens and
Yeah.
if they want to.
Not to remove 1 month to
Remove
remove
the rats.
To remove the rats, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
You did say
Yeah.
chickens.
Getting those fixed,
We-
the teeth doesn't work.
Either by
Yeah. No, that's fine.
removing the
It's just
chickens
that-
or
Yeah, no,
dealing
sorry.
with the rodent problem.
Yeah.
Yes.
But by this, we will be putting tenants to the allotment. So we I'll level what they.
No,
cost.
The cost would go to
But from what I heard, it says that you've got a month to sort it, or we will get it sorted for you. So how are they sorting it if they're not?
Well, remit them up to sort of.
So you're talking about
chickens,
removal of
I guess.
chickens.
Yeah.
So either they're removing chickens in a month, or we're waiting a month and then we're sending in a back action. Yeah,
Or they could get a licensed pest controller in at their own cost.
yeah. I think we need to be very clear what we're offering.
Yeah.
I think for clarity, because that isn't an option within the agreement. I think we probably need to be, you can remove the chickens, and then we can control the cost will come between those that still have them on.
So effectively what we're doing is delaying it for a month.
Yeah.
And then we're
That's
challenging
to resolve the issue. by removing the chickens.
Well,
And if the chickens
we-
remain after a month, then we'll get somebody in to do it, and the cost will be divided by those who are chickens.
I'm always proposing to sort of deviate slightly, but in a month's time, if all the chickens are gone, there's still rats. Presumably, we've still got to get someone in.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, then that
Because you're talking
yeah.
summer holidays, then your kids are out and about. And if what you're saying is that there's a large number of rats about, there'll still be a large number of rats in a month's time.
Mm.
So it feels like we're not actually really getting the situation dealt with.
I think there's two parts to this, if I may. The first part is what we have to do to instruct the tenants. I think that's covered in the motion that we put together. I think the second part, we need a discussion of authorising the clerk, obviously, within our operations, she's allowed to do this, to already investigate, then control there. What we're saying is we're giving them 1 month to sort out the chickens before we start charging them for that.
Okay. Because I'm feeling that there should be some level of pest control
Yeah.
now,
Yeah, I agree.
not in 4 weeks' time.
So I also have, I don't know, I'm just going to cloud it myself now. But there are, when you go on to Grosvenor, people, I don't know if you agree with me here, there's a little chicken coop to the left, no rats down that end, no problems. There's the 2 chicken coops to the right, massive rat problem. So actually, you may have a situation where we get vermin control out, and they might say, right, your rat problem's here, and actually there's no problem down there. Do we then make those people, do we say what happened with that, or do we let them get rid of them anyway?
We have it within the tenancy agreement that Phil said, but we can already pass that cost on to tenants. We don't need to pre-warn them. They know this because it's in the tenancy
But
agreement.
what I'm saying is, it might be that it's not all 3 lots of chickens, it might just be 2. So actually, if we get someone in and they determine as a professional that the problem's coming from this area, then we shouldn't penalise the person down the other end potentially. That's where I'm saying it gets a bit grey.
The only problem
Sorry, Peter,
Oh, sorry.
Taylor had her hand up first. So.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think actually there might be a middle ground on this, that Michelle go away and instruct a pest controller, a professional, to come in and to undertake the work, because as Councillor Smith said, it's going to have to happen either way.
Yeah.
So we could have someone come in and do the work and identify where the issue lies and ask them to identify it and bring it to us in writing, so that if there's any dispute, we have it from a professional in writing. And then we offer the opportunity for those people to remove their chickens so that we have no reoccurring instances. And we say to them, if you choose to keep the chickens or if you don't get rid of them, we are going to hold you, as per your tenancy agreement, liable for these costs. So then we already have a cost that we could tell them, if you do not remove them, this is what we will ask you to cover these costs. And then we would have a figure as well,
Sounds good.
which would offer a determinant. I mean, that's fairly similar to what was on the table.
Let's clear them out,
Right.
give them the opportunity to take.
I know that's quite a
No,
detailed
but it's
proposal,
on
but
a
I think
consultation
it,
basis.
Peter, then
No,
Joey.
it's all right. So the motion covered.
It's covered what you were saying,
Yeah.
Joey.
All I can say is that it needs to be done fairly quickly, because rats breed like food and wash. They're worse than rabbits.
Yeah.
I mean, I've lived in the country all my life, and most people have here. And you have a rat problem, you ain't gonna get rid of it. They will then go to the houses and they'll have a rat problem.
Yeah.
It's got to happen like tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yes, I have one in my compost bin.
So that's something like
Because you
a
wouldn't-
good
Right.
proposal. Before we talk about that,
Yeah.
I'm happy to second that.
Yeah.
And I can guarantee there's more than one breeding vet than that.
Are you happy to put that as a proposal?
I am, and
Yeah.
then Michelle can start on that straight away.
Yes,
There's
you
no
can start on
delay.
it. Have you got that? I think that's probably, yeah, I think that's great.
Who would like to second that proposal?
Everybody.
Anybody? Who's for it? Anybody against? No? Anybody abstain? No?
Stay.
Abstain?
Yeah.
Okay. You want that noted?
Yeah, can do, I don't care. I'm not going to argue about it.
Right, so you will keep this under
Target on that.
control
Tomorrow now, I
and
know
then,
where I am. Yeah,
call us in if you need them.
no, that's fine, occupation.
Right. Right, item 11, correspondence. Hedgehogs or us? Yes, that's right.
So we don't like rats, but we do like them.
You do like
I like
hedgehogs.
garden, I don't.
But this is a request for, where is it? For us to buy things to resell. You've all read it, so
Yeah.
I have concerns that it's just a,
Okay, this came to full council, and I said at the time, this is a private company that wants to buy their hedgehog things and sell them on.
yes.
No.
No. Right, I propose that we do nothing with that, and anybody second it? Yeah, any favour? Any against? Any abstains?
No, if we don't
Right,
like
that was easy.
if we don't like
Right, then
hedgehogs.
we've got public participation. Well, again, we have no public. And then the items for inclusion on the next agenda and date and time of next morning meeting, I'm now going to move up before we switch off the thing. Items for inclusion on the next agenda. Well, yes, sorry, yeah.
Can I make a suggestion that you could email me in after the walkabout? That might be.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yes, we will.
Items for agenda.
give us an agenda. As far as the next agenda is concerned, I will be at the next meeting, but I won't be here the week before. So Andy is going to control the agenda with Michelle. So if you have any items that you want, let Michelle know and she'll liaise with Andy. Yes, so you're quite right. Feedback from the thing will go on there. Anybody, is there anything else they'd like to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I was copied into an email, it was last week, if not like the end of the week before, highlighting some SO106 monies that were for open spaces, with the deadline, spend deadline of February, February, I think it's, yeah, the end of February. So that's about £35,000.
Yeah.
I need to identify projects.
Well, I've got a note on here, to say, speak to Roger so he can help us cemetery plot, which is kind of what I think originally the idea of that was to go to. And I understand that some, before my time, some plots have been identified, the water table has been wrong. So if anyone's got any ideas, I have contacted Bretland. We kind of need to be thinking about that. That would be a good place to spend it if we can find somewhere.
We put that.
Yeah, put that on. I've already
Yeah.
made a note of it. Yeah.
So has anybody else got anything for the next meeting? Right, well, in which case we will now exclude the press and public and close the meeting and then go on to the, oh, sorry, date of next meeting.
We do have to vote for that as well. With the exclusion of press and public.
Oh, yes, sorry, I haven't done date and time of next meeting yet. So, which is the 18th of July, I think, yeah, third Monday.
Third Monday, 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. And right, so exclusion of the press and public, I would like to propose that we exclude the press and public. Anybody second that? Councillor Westby, all those in favour?